Great. So condors are North America's largest flying land bird with a wingspan of up to 9.5 feet and weighing in at up to 26 pounds. They're very long-lived for birds, living upwards of 60 years. And going along with their long lifespan, they have a very slow reproductive rate. At best, a pair will raise a new chick every other year. They usually will lay one egg, only ever one egg, sometime between February and March, and they'll incubate that egg, taking turns for the next 2 months. That egg will hatch sometime in April or May, and then they'll take care of that chick as it hangs out at the nest for about 5 or 6 more months until it finally fledges in October to December. The pair will continue to raise that chick through the winter and the spring, at which point they will eventually let it go on its own, find its own food. That bird will then live for another 4 or 5 years before it begins thinking about reproduction. So, unlike a lot of birds that we think of, they don't build a nest. They simply find a cave and usually a very large cliff, like the one pictured here. This is just off the northwest corner of the battleship, which you can see from Hopi Point. This is a cave that's been used for multiple years. Here is that same cave with an adult condor perched in it. That bird is about 3 feet tall, so it gives you an idea of how big these caves are. So why are condors bald? Well, it's a great look, first of all, but they're bald because they're scavengers. They feed on dead animals. They don't ever kill anything. So when they're feeding in these carcasses, their heads get covered with flesh, bits of the carrion, and having feathers on your head can be quite a mess, so having a bald head reduces that problem. But why are condors endangered? Why are we worried about them? Why do we monitor them? Well, they declined quite precipitously during the 20th century for a number of reasons. You can see in the brown their kind of historic range in the 1800s, and then red was where they were at about in the 1980s. So a lot of the reasons listed here, we don't know which was the most important. They all probably factored into the decline, but it includes shooting for museum collections, hunters, egg collecting, indirect poisoning. There's a lot of widespread poisoning of carcasses for predator control in the West in the early 20th century. Quite famously, DDT contamination, that pesticide that caused the decline of peregrine falcons and bald eagles in the mid-1900s, also caused the decline of condors. Food scarcity, widespread market hunting in the early 20th century as well, eliminated prey species like bison, elk. Those animals that killed by other predators provided food for condors. Loss of habitat, development, human disturbance to nesting areas, as well as collisions with power lines and cars. So that all of those factors led to, by 1982, only 22 condors were left in the entire world, wild and captivity together. They decided to take all of these birds into captivity to start a reintroduction program in 1982. They then spent the next 10 years building up that captive population to where in 1992 they started re-releasing birds back into the wild in California. 4 years later, they did the same thing in northern Arizona. They're historically native to the area. They were last seen in 1920, so 75 years later, we had condors back in northern Arizona. This is the Vermilion Cliffs release site that if you just go a bit north of the canyon across the Navajo Bridge, you can go see this spot. It's a great place to see condors. So, what's been the history over the last 22 years? Well, 96, they released 6 birds, and since then we've gone up to 91 birds as of 2018. On a wider scale, we now have 3 populations spread across North America where condors have been reintroduced. We have California, where there's about 170. There's about 40 condors in Baja, Mexico. That population was reintroduced in 2002. And then our population in northern Arizona and southern Utah. And in other news, looking into the future, in 2019, 2020, next few years, there's a partnership between the Fish and Wildlife Service, the Park Service, and the Yurok tribe, who's really pushing the endeavor to reintroduce condors into Northern California and Southern Oregon, centered around Redwood National Park. So look for that news in the next few years. Well, there's been a lot of progress with condor reintroduction, but there's still continuing threats. Collisions with power lines and cars remain a problem. Shootings, both accidental and intentional, unfortunately. Ingestion of microtrash, those bits of wrappers of granola bars you sometimes forget to pick up or lose track of. But primarily it's lead poisoning. So here you can see this is all taken out of the stomach of one condor chick that was found dead in a nest cave. Its parents had obviously been collecting these bits of trash and bringing it back to the chick as food. Unfortunately, Condor chick did not survive. The same goes for coins. So people throwing coins off the edge to make a wish causes a similar problem. Condors will collect those as well. And someone has to go out there and pick those up. So please don't toss coins off the edge. But as I said, it's primarily lead. Almost more than half of all confirmed condor deaths are from lead poisoning. And you ask, why are they getting affected by lead? Well, primarily numerous studies have shown that the primary source of lead for condors is from lead ammunition from hunting. Hunters, when they go out into the field and remove an animal, they often leave the gut pile behind, take the meat out of the field, but that gut pile, because when lead bullets hit an animal, it fragments into many pieces. Those lead fragments get all throughout the carcass and is found by scavengers like foxes, coyotes. Bald eagles are also affected by this. But condors are acutely affected because they are primarily scavengers and have a higher rate of interaction with this lead. So what are we doing about this? Well, there's a partnership, North American Non-Lead Partnership, which is raising awareness about this issue and trying to get, in cooperation with state agencies and hunting groups, to promote the use of non-lead ammunition, primarily copper ammunition. It doesn't fragment like lead, doesn't cause lead poisoning. If you want more information, there's pamphlets outside in the lobby to look at. So this is kind of the stats from this last year of what the population in Arizona and Utah did. We have 91 birds, as I said earlier. The Peregrine Fund, who's our nonprofit partner, released about 16 birds into the wild. Out of those 91 birds, we had 17 pairs that exhibited nesting behavior and produced, in total, 3 wild-fledged chicks. Unfortunately, we did have 6 mortalities. So you guys are going to be out in the field. How you can help? Well, you know, Grand Canyon's a big place. These birds are over a wide area. We can't cover all that area. So reporting sightings of condors is really helpful. You can report these sightings to Miranda Terwilliger at nps.gov. Come see me after if you want more information as well. And then the best way to identify the condor is from a unique wing tag. It's an alphanumeric code with either 2 letters, 2 numbers, or a letter and a number that you can use to identify the condor. Additionally, at our website, you can just Google search Condor Updates Grand Canyon, and you can see what's going on with the population, as well as read our condor gossip chart, which tells you, well, this is it. You know, how old the bird is, who its mate is, where it was born. It gives its unique wing tag and unique number, so that information is all available online. So the 3 areas first listed, Tapeats Creek, Navajo Bridge, and Battleship, those are 3 areas where we had wild-fledged chicks last year. So if you're in those areas, keep an eye out for an untagged chick. It's good to keep track of them as they go through this stage where they start kind of becoming more independent. Additionally, the Tower of Ra and Newton Butte areas, we have a good indication that there may be nesting activity this year as well, so keep your eyes to the sky there as well. So the stars indicate, this is just a map of Grand Canyon and the area, where the nesting was last year. So Tapeats Creek is the star furthest on the left. In the middle is the Battleship pair, where they nested, as well as the Navajo Bridge in the top right corner. So if you're going to be out there looking for condors, you should know how to ID them. It's unfortunately not too difficult. They're huge. They're by far the biggest birds. The juveniles have this nice black head, their underwing is not as white as an adult. It's kind of dirty, grayish. The adults have that beautiful pink head, turkey-like wattle, and a bright white underwing. And usually, if they have tags, those wing tags are a pretty good indication it's a condor. So the top 2 birds on the left are an adult condor and an immature condor. You can see the kind of the general wing pattern outline there. This is as if you're looking at them from below, which is often what you're going to be seeing. The next 2 birds are an adult golden eagle and an immature golden eagle, which are the 2 that are probably easiest to confuse. You notice an adult golden eagle is all dark underneath. Golden eagle immature has white spots on its wings and a white tail. Turkey vulture, which is probably the one that gets confused the most, has white on the back of the wing rather than the front of the wing. But because it has that pink vulture head, people think they're condors. Another bird, because it's all dark and in the canyon where you're looking miles away, can look like a big bird. But as you can see here, for comparison, they're quite a bit smaller. There we go. So this is a great comparison shot. I don't know who took this. It's an awesome photo of a turkey vulture soaring with a condor. And you can see the wingspan's about half the size. And you can see the white on the back of the wings of the turkey vulture and white on the front of the wings of the condor. This is an adult golden eagle on the left being harassed by a raven, and an immature golden eagle on the right. You can see it's all dark on the adult, white wing patches and a white tail on the immature. So that's a quick condor idea. I just want to say thank you to our partners, the Peregrine Fund. It's a nonprofit that does all of the condor management in this population. I think the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the U.S. Forest Service, the BLM, the Phoenix Zoo, other national park units, including Zion and Glen Canyon National Recreation Area, Arizona Game and Fish, the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources, the Kaibab Band of Paiutes, Navajo Nation, and the Wallapai Tribe. All of us work together to manage these birds. So I just want to thank you for your time, and if you have any questions. Oh, yes. Yeah, so I believe that the main reason they release birds in northern Arizona and southern Utah is the canyon country habitat. These large cliffs with plenty of caves creates a lot of potential nesting habitat for condors. And I think that was the reason they selected this region over other regions that they were historically native to. Yeah, so in the last few years, I don't know if maybe the last 5 to 10 years, the condors have moved further north for their summer range especially. They've started feeding more in the Kolob Canyons area and in the high mountains north of Zion National Park. There's a lot of sheep ranching that goes on up there, and sheep tend to not make it sometimes, as sheep do. So that provides a lot of food source for condors. So that's why you don't see them as much in Grand Canyon. But up in Zion, there's a lot more in the summer. So. I would say most of the time it's probably evenly mixed between old birds and captive bred birds released in the last year or two. But it varies. I don't really know exactly how that breaks down. But yeah, usually if nests fail, it's usually in the nest. And so we don't usually count those birds because they haven't left their nest. So, yeah. Yeah, so at that Vermilion Cliffs release site that I showed in one of the early slides, it doubles as a capture pen. So what they'll do is they'll put a cow carcass in there with the gate open. The bird will fly in there, land, walk into the cage, and then they'll drop the cage door, and that bird is essentially trapped in the cage. And then they can capture it in the cage and work it up, tag it, whatnot. So, yes. Yeah, so chelation therapy, yeah, especially in the fall and winter, the birds are exposed to lead a lot more. It's when the Kaibab deer hunting season is going on, so lead exposure levels spike quite drastically. So right now, they're doing chelation therapy, and it's mostly done by the Peregrine Fund and and vets at the Phoenix Zoo, as far as I know. Yeah. So the first three were that I listed there out of those 5 were all locations that were successful in fledging chicks. The other 2 had nesting activity last year, but we think they might be trying to re-nest again this year. So. I actually don't know the answer to that question. What their main food source is in Baja. But I think there's a lot less hunting that goes on in Baja, Mexico than there is up, in California and this region. So, yeah. Good question. In Baja, last I checked, I think it was 38. But that was from 2017, so it's probably over. I would expect it's over 40 by now. Yeah. Anybody else? Thank you.